2007 was arguably the best year for the gaming industry. Amazing games were released in 2007, such as Mass Effect, God of War 2, Portal, Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, Assassin's Creed, Crysis, The Witcher, and many more. Of course, it's no surprise these titles overshadowed many other games released that year. One such game was Clive Barker's Jericho. For many of you, especially for those whose knees don't crack, this is the first time you're hearing about Jericho, but this game has been at the back of my mind for many years now. And don't ask me how, but I finally managed to play it again. So I think it's time to look at it through the prism of time and make a review of Jericho. Is it actually good, or is it just nostalgia in my eyes? The game's plot is set on a religious base. It's about the firstborn, being created by God, being so powerful that even God itself couldn't tame it, so it banished the firstborn into the abyss. Despite being locked, firstborn tried to break into the mortal world many times throughout history. It failed every time, but with each attempt, firstborn would collect a fragment of time to add to its domain. The game begins with another breakout attempt. A major breach occurs in the city of Al-Khali, and the Department of Occult Warfare decides to send in a special forces team called Jericho to seal the breach. We play as Davin Ross, the captain of Jericho squad and a psychic healer. Besides Ross, the Jericho team has 6 other members, but we'll talk about them later. After arriving and clearing the site, Arnold Leach ambushed the Jericho squad. The firstborn appears before the team and lures Davin Ross into the open. Leach uses this for his own advantage and kills Ross. However, Ross's mind remains alive, allowing him to possess other squad members, which introduces the game's main mechanic. The squad sees no other choice but to enter into the abyss to seal the breach from inside. And that's when the horror begins. Jericho fights its way through hordes of enemies at different periods of time, trapped in the abyss. Since it's a horror game, a reasonable question comes up. Is it scary? Short answer, no. Long answer, it's a bit complicated. The game doesn't try to scare you with cheap jump scares. Instead, it makes you feel uncomfortable. Enemies look disgusting. Hooks are pierced in the skin, nails are hammered into bones, meat and guts are exposed, and other disgusting stuff that makes your skin shiver. One of the main antagonists, Arnold Leach, looks like he came straight from the children's nightmares. But unfortunately, the internet ruined Hannah Lichthammer for me. She's one of the bosses in the game whom we fight during the World War II period, and I simply cannot take her voice seriously. She sounds like that pumpkin pie lady.
How many times I have to get to get the number of the freaking pie?
Please say in the comments that I'm not the only one hearing that voice. Other bosses are just horrible, but in a good way. Casus Vicas is probably the most memorable boss in the game. His fighting methods are definitely something. Dude just casually decided to hang himself on hooks and use his own entrails as a weapon, opening up his belly and squirting extremely toxic, putrid excrement and blood on us. So yeah, lore-wise it's a decent game with well-written characters and a good, not complicated story, all giving the vibes of early 2000 horror movies, the good ones. Clive Barker's Jericho is a shooter from the late 2000s, which tells us a lot about the gameplay. It's super easy. We spawn at point A and progress towards point B, fighting the bad guys along the way. For modern standards, it's disgustingly tedious, and the number of enemies the game sends at you is unacceptable. Sometimes it feels like waves of enemies will never end, and since we're in a crew of 6, you'd think it makes enemies less annoying. But no. Half of the playtime we spent healing our team. So let's talk about them. Ironically, the most useful among them is the priest. Father Paul Rawlings wields 2 deagles and has the ability to heal crew members at a distance, which helps a lot of the time. The only downside of Father Rawlings is that he needs healing as many times as others. Another member of the squad is Abigail Black. I use this character the most because her sniper rifle allows her to kill most enemies with just one headshot. Her abilities are a ghost bullet. She can use her rifle to shoot a mind-driven bullet that can pierce through multiple enemies, and telekinesis, which we use only to clear paths. Frank Delgado is a walking tank, with a fire demon on his arm that incinerates nearby enemies. The other Delgado's ability is a fire barrier, which he creates around himself for extra protection and a resistance towards fire damage. But the best part is his minigun, which deals a lot of damage, and we can just spam the enemies with bullets. A programmer and obsessive numerologist, Simone Cole is the squad's reality hacker. She has the ability to slow time and supply the team with ammunition. Billy Church is a blood mage who casts blood or fire words. One immobilizes enemies, while the other incinerates them. She's a melee type of fighter, and that's the reason why I never played as Church. As my grandpa said, don't bring a katana to a gunfight. Oh, and there's also Jones. The fighting capabilities of this squad are non-existent, as they shoot blanks, get in your way a lot, and they constantly get knocked down. If we're lucky, they will use some of their abilities, but I would rather count on myself. But the best part of the firefights is its absence, because when the fighting is done, we have an opportunity to admire the scenery of the locations, or in some cases be disgusted by the scenery. As was mentioned before, Jericho squad travels through different periods of history and some locations look astonishing. Roman provinces and Sumeria is one of the best looking locations in the game. Now, modern titles are usually set in America, Scandinavia or Japan, which is overused in my opinion. Seeing Roman architecture and Mesopotamian interiors all covered in blood is truly refreshing and adds more value in my eyes. And not only that, rivers of blood, ground made of soldiers' remnants and guts and flesh scattered all over the place set the atmosphere perfectly for a horror game. Many will dislike how linear locations are, but sometimes it's good to have a break from the endless open worlds that a lot of games have. Although it may seem pointless to discuss graphics of an 18-year-old game, many people consider graphics a crucial aspect when it comes to older games. Back in 2007, Clive Barker's Jericho didn't have revolutionary visuals, and it wasn't bad either. As for 2025, yes, the corners are sharp, the textures are blurry, and the map are not as detailed as in modern titles. Despite that, it doesn't hurt your eyes when you look at this game. Well, most of the time. But sometimes we're just forced to look at the sun. The amount of bloom is hilarious. Why in the world would you need this rocky table to glow? Especially that brightly. Sure, developers wanted their game to look good and up to standards. But this is over the top. Although even today Clive Barker's Jericho doesn't look bad at all. I'm sure everyone had situations when the game turned out to look way worse than they remembered. For some reason, I had a quite opposite experience here. In my memory, this game was ugly to say the least, but to my pleasant surprise, everything went nice and smooth. Clive Barker's Jericho received a 63 Metascore and a 7.7 user score on Metacritic, which shows that despite not being the greatest game out there, people still enjoy playing it. As for me, the design of the location was the best part of the game. It becomes better and better, which just escalates my excitement with each new location. Another strong component of the game is the enemies, specifically the bosses and antagonists. The horrific design and the lore behind each of them explain why Jericho claims to be a horror game. The story is just a typical horror movie experience. It's not bad and it definitely doesn't make you question your whole existence. It's just there, the story for the sake of the story. The gameplay turns out to be the biggest downfall. All you do is just go from point to point and shoot the ugly dudes. And everything wouldn't be that bad except that the shooting part is not that great. Endless waves of enemies and the incredible stupidity of your squad turn your playthrough into a chore. Most of the fights start with a simple here we go again, which is a bad sign for a shooter. Instead of enjoying the fights, I have a strong desire to avoid them, which is impossible because I can neither outmaneuver the enemies nor escape the fight. I am just forced to eliminate every single enemy to progress further. Fortunately, this shooting range simulator can be completed in around 5 hours or so. In conclusion, would I recommend playing this game? Well, if you're not picky, then yeah, probably. A short duration of the game makes it a low risk to try, and with everything I stated, I would rate Clive Barker's Jericho as a 6.5 out of 10.
Goodbye, man.